Hey guys, what's going on and welcome to yet another video on this channel. I'm back with something that I had in mind for quite a while. Some further informations and updates regarding the channel are going to be set at the end of the video, so make sure to stay if you have interest. Maybe one quick note, a funny anecdote. In case you're wondering what that weird stain on my hand is, I accidentally burnt myself when I was trying to fry something. In the end I succeeded, though this was an incident that could have been easily prevented. I most certainly wanted to avoid interruptions when I speak about such a fascinating topic, so yeah, it's no serious injury, not at all actually, but it's over my entire body, and that is really what irritates me a bit. I don't know what exactly this tells you about my personality anyway, but I guess it also makes you draw the obvious conclusion way sooner than intended. Enough said, enjoy the following. As you might have guessed already, today I'm going to talk about Miguelanxo Prado, a Spain comic book artist who studied architecture and would later on publish his first drawings in fanzines and also one professional magazine, Untitled. He's done many comics in his career and is actually still working on stuff. Not only have his creations found appeal at the comic festival Angoulême, his most recent work, Leichte Beute, was promoted at the comic salon in Erlangen, where he had won the Max & Moritz Award before. I met him there and got my edition of Daily Delirium signed, a very popular anthology series he's put out in the late 80s to early 90s. And that is actually what I want to show you today. In the 3 albums released by the German Haber Verlag, which have since been combined in a complete volume, there are more than 50 short stories, each of which extends to approximately 3 to 4 pages. The stories are about the most absurd everyday situations you could possibly imagine, always told in a very sarcastic way with a bitter point at the end. Makes it even more horrific that a high percentage of them are based on real scenarios Prado's experienced. The narratives represent a panopticon of our everyday life, because as exaggerated as they may be, there's still much truth in it. The themes are often very socio-critical and thought-provoking. His distinctive own style of drawing supports his satirical message even more, since it stands in direct contrast to the rather dark-ending stories. It is indeed a relatively difficult task to make it clear to an outsider how these comics work. Because as much as it can be described with adjectives and their superlatives, you have to get an idea of it, you have to be confronted with it first. When I first read it, I was extremely surprised. My dad had wanted to give me a rough idea of what to expect, about as vague as I'm trying to do in this video. Still, I must say I was overwhelmed by the ease with which Prado brings the whole thing across. Undoubtedly, he is one of the most innovative minds of the European comic scene. I'm shocked that I have not yet found an English language feature on YouTube. The comics also happen to be very surreal, and I'm not only referring to the art style, because that is an obvious observation. It's the interaction of both elements, substantially weird, apparently set in reality, though it can no longer be perceived as such, too alienated and abstruse, like a strange dream. The distorted buildings and backgrounds seem to be perfectly symbolizing the metropolis and its inhabitants. Those 3-pagers, episodes of everyday life, discuss the inescapable mechanisms of bureaucracy, but also consumption, sexism, the overall relationship of man and woman couldn't be left out either, with the latter being depicted as a sex object and having to face the constant gulping of man. The compulsion to profile oneself, the total ignorance towards minorities. As it says on the blurb, it is often dealt with a province stereotype, driven to the big city and being totally over-challenged with its conditions. Also, might sound utterly confusing and yet spiteful, I assume this was the thought behind it anyway, almost every protagonist seems to be a suitable victim for whatever Prado's up to. To elucidate his message, he tends to evince a new level of grotesque and overdo certain approaches, which I wouldn't consider a bad thing. Of course, it makes it less subtle, however, I bet that ruthlessness is part-wise responsible for the hype amongst comic fans. Unsuspicious, seemingly harmless initial situations getting out of hand and ending in an orgy of violence. In an interview, Prado was asked if these short tales and gags come more naturally to him than his dramatic works. He responded, "Not necessarily, but I suppose that we could say they are more immediate, less reflective, more direct." During which he also said that it has a sarcastic intent for putting in question our individual and social vices and defects, since we like to recognize ourselves as the villains in the movie in general. In this story, a harsh woman and her son visit a florist, and while she behaves rough, is rude and mistreats her son. It doesn't take long until it escalates when a pot with an expensive elm falls to the ground and breaks. The customer was responsible and the florist wants her to pay the damage. Then the kid ruins the next piece of art by urinating on it. The heated discussion results in a gory fest with gallons of blood, and when the policeman arrives, she claims the man wanted to fool her, assault her son, and of course, rape her. The two stroll along the sidewalk and she complains about how customers are treated. So you see where this is going, right? Maybe I could give you an impression now. There are plenty of other great examples. An angry man trying to buy groceries and being trapped in a supermarket full of women. A sadistic child who must now learn what it means to be treated like that. A group of seniors whose action has long since passed the limit and who think they can behave however they want. A car repair shop that demands far more than it should under false pretenses. And so on. The expressiveness of the characters and the energy in his drawings are remarkable. Many different painting techniques that alternate can be found in Prado's work. He uses all kinds of materials, including chalk. The most frequently he utilizes aquarelle, where you can see very strong contrasts. Most of the time it is very filigree, fine lines with him. My assumption is ink, but I could also be wrong, because I could not find specific information in this regard. Furthermore, he simply masters the light-dark differentiation, if you can call it like that, so everything looks three-dimensional. There are barely any hatchings, as bright and dark spots in aquarelle are often achieved with gradations of the respective color or the use of chalk, just like in this picture. Striking is the placement of the panels on a black background, which means the gutters are black. That creates a weird effect, and I personally think it makes it gloomy. Recurring features are, for instance, treetops, which often look like rocks. I remember having opened the book for the first time and immediately noticed that. I mean, the entire vegetation, bushes, trees, all of them have been depicted as compact sculptural structures, where you cannot see foliage or anything like that. The same applies, coincidentally maybe, to the hair of the persons. To take another wild guess, I think that he used the background as a part of his drawing, which would in this case be cardboard. Overall, I can recommend those comics to everyone who loves humorous and satirical everyday stories. Prado really knows his stuff and masters it brilliantly to depict the human abysses in an ironic way on just a few pages. His stories often resemble caricatures or cartoons, as shown in the pointed, elaborate faces and poses of the characters. And yet his work has its own charm. Alright, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for any further content that's hopefully going to appear more frequently now that I have holidays. Although actually holidays started 2 weeks ago. It did take me quite some time to record this video rather. Might have been due to the fact that I wrote a script this time and I was quite unhappy with it first, only to be satisfied in the end. What is your opinion on it? Is this the way I should handle things in the future? Maybe I do have an approximately 100 approaches and ideas in mind. I've actually written a list of things I could do on my channel, and it's definitely something that I would want to realize at some point. It's just that I'm not really trying to stay on the track with scripts. Maybe I'm rather doing things a bit more spontaneously. Of course, this makes it less fluent. That's the disadvantage. But maybe rather or more natural, and you can follow my thoughts a bit easier. We'll see how things are going to turn out. The motivation is definitely there. This is something I wanted to mention. Big shout out, big thank you to everyone who's been supporting me in the past 2 videos. Incredible response. I would have never thought of such a positive feedback and such an immediate reaction. It really, things develop way too far from my understanding. I was extremely, immensely surprised, positively surprised, obviously. And there were so many people that I've been previously in contact with that just found their way on my channel. This made me incredibly happy, because those are of course the people whose opinion I count on. You know, you guys are responsible for that. And There have also been a couple of newcomers that I want to welcome on this channel. Of course, I want everyone to be welcomed on this channel. I'm overwhelmed simply, so I do have some word making troubles, but special shout out to Earl Grey, Govidal, Mind the Comics, Comic Crack, Sleepy Reader, Creighton, Josh's Mountain, Comic Passion 616, also a really nice dude that also uploaded a video recently, so go ahead and check that out. Go ahead and check all the channels out. I put in my recommended on my channel. It's definitely worth it. Thanks for all the suggestions you've made, for the advice you gave me on how to improve certain things. Thanks for the praise I got. Thanks for the reference to the video content in general. It's simply incredible. Okay, I think that might have been quite repetitive, but is there ever sufficient thanking? I've already said that. Thanks for watching. Until next time.